Few voices have stood the test of time quite like Tom Jones, a legend whose powerful sound captivated generations, whose career spanned decades, and whose life was filled with passion, triumph, and heartbreak. From a small town in Wales to international superstardom, his journey is one of incredible highs and devastating lows. He conquered the charts, reinvented himself time and time again, and became a global icon. But behind the fame was a man shaped by love, loss, and an unbreakable spirit. Tonight, we uncover the story of a young boy with a dream, a singer who defied the odds, and a man who endured immense personal tragedy. Get ready for the full story of Tom Jones, his rise to fame, the struggles that nearly ended his career, and the pain that changed his life forever. If you love music and legendary stories, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into the incredible journey of Sir Tom Jones. Before the world knew him as Tom Jones, he was Thomas John Woodward, a boy born in the small Welsh town of Treforest in 1940. Life was simple but tough. His father worked long, grueling hours in the coal mines, while his mother stayed home, keeping the family together. Growing up in a working-class household, young Tom was surrounded by the sounds of struggle, resilience, and community, a background that would later shape the depth and soul of his music. But at just 12 years old, Tom's world came to a standstill. He was diagnosed with tuberculosis, a disease that left him bedridden for 2 years. Confined to his small room, life outside seemed to move on without him. The days were long, the isolation unbearable, but one thing gave him comfort: music. He listened to the radio, memorized lyrics, and imagined himself standing on stage in front of an audience. With nothing but his voice and his dreams, he found an escape from his illness. As he slowly recovered, one thing became clear: Tom had a gift. His voice was deep, rich, and unlike anything people had ever heard. Though he struggled in school and had little interest in sports, music gave him confidence. At family gatherings, he would sing, effortlessly commanding the room. In school choirs, his voice stood out, powerful, raw, and filled with emotion far beyond his years. Even as a teenager, he was already setting himself apart from the crowd. By 1963, Tom was ready to take his talent beyond family parties and school halls. He joined a local band called Tommy Scott and the Senators, performing at pubs and small venues around Wales. Their sound was fresh, energetic, and quickly made them a sensation in their hometown. People began to take notice, not just of the band, but of their lead singer. There was something about Tom, his presence, his intensity, his unmistakable voice, that drew people in. Word spread, and soon, London-based producer Joe Meek took an interest. He invited Tom to record a few tracks, hoping to capture that electrifying voice. But the songs failed to make an impact, and the dream of breaking into the industry seemed to fade. It was a crushing setback, but Tom wasn't ready to give up. He knew his voice had something special, something that couldn't be ignored forever. Then came the meeting that would change everything. In 1964, Tom crossed paths with Gordon Mills, a sharp, ambitious manager who saw what others had missed: true star potential. Mills believed Tom could be more than just a local singer. He could be a phenomenon. But first, he needed an image, a name that people would remember. Inspired by the popular 1963 film Tom Jones, Mills gave him a new identity, one that exuded charisma, confidence, and timeless appeal. With a new name and a new vision, Tom Jones was ready for the world. What happened next would launch him into superstardom and forever change the landscape of popular music. In 1964, Tom Jones took a leap that would forever alter his destiny. He signed a record deal with Decca Records. With his powerful voice and commanding presence, he was ready to take on the music industry. His first official single, Chills and Fever, was released with high hopes. But instead of launching him into stardom, the song barely made a ripple. For many artists, this would have been the end of the road. But for Tom, it was just the beginning. Then came the song that would change everything. In early 1965, he recorded It's Not Unusual, a song bursting with energy, emotion, and a voice unlike anything else on the radio. The track was fresh, bold, and impossible to ignore. With the support of pirate radio stations like Radio Caroline, it quickly gained traction. Within weeks, the song climbed the charts, and before he knew it, Tom Jones had his first #1 hit in the UK. The song even crossed the Atlantic, breaking into the US top 10, a rare feat for a British singer at the time. Suddenly, everyone wanted more of Tom Jones. The hits kept rolling in. What's New Pussycat, a wild, unconventional track written by Burt Bacharach, became another smash hit, proving Tom's versatility. Then came Thunderball, the official theme song for the James Bond film of the same name, which cemented his reputation as a powerful and dynamic vocalist. Audiences were captivated. He had a voice that could shake the room and a charisma that made him impossible to forget. But it wasn't just about the music. It was the way he performed. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who stood stiffly behind a microphone, Tom commanded the stage. His performances were electric, filled with energy, passion, and raw intensity. Every note he sang carried weight, and every movement he made seemed to set the audience on fire. His presence was magnetic, and fans couldn't get enough. Then came Green, Green Grass of Home, a ballad that showcased a softer, more heartfelt side of Tom Jones. The song resonated deeply with listeners, reaching #1 and proving that he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. He was here to stay. By 1967, Tom Jones was not just a singer, he was a superstar. And what better place to embrace the glitz and glamour of his newfound fame than Las Vegas? That year, he made his Las Vegas debut at the legendary Flamingo Hotel. It was here that Tom Jones truly transformed into the larger-than-life performer the world would come to know. The flashy lights, the extravagant showrooms, the high-rolling audiences, it was the perfect stage for his signature style to emerge. Night after night, he delivered electrifying performances, dressed in tight pants and unbuttoned shirts that left just enough to the imagination. His confidence on stage was unmatched, his voice soaring through the grand casino halls like a force of nature. And then, something unusual started happening. Women in the audience began throwing their underwear onto the stage. It became an infamous tradition, turning Tom Jones concerts into more than just musical events. They were full-fledged spectacles. But it wasn't just the fans who were mesmerized. Even the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley, took notice. The two met in Las Vegas, quickly forming a friendship built on mutual respect. Elvis was fascinated by Tom's voice, its power, its depth, its sheer ability to command a room. The admiration was mutual, and for Tom, earning the respect of a legend like Presley was one of the greatest honors of his career. By the late 60s, Tom Jones had gone from a small-town boy in Wales to one of the most sought-after entertainers in the world. His voice had conquered the charts, his performances had become legendary, and his presence in Las Vegas had solidified his status as an icon. But with fame comes pressure, and as the music industry evolved, Tom would soon have to reinvent himself once again to stay on top. By the early 1970s, the music world was shifting. The British invasion had given way to a new wave of rock bands, experimental sounds, and a younger generation hungry for something different. The rise of artists like Led Zeppelin, David Bowie, and Queen reshaped the industry, and suddenly, Tom Jones, once the most electrifying performer in the business, found himself struggling to keep up. His signature sound, rooted in big, dramatic vocals and classic showmanship, was beginning to feel out of place in a world moving toward psychedelic rock and folk-driven storytelling. As his signature pop hits became less frequent, Tom knew he needed to evolve. He wasn't the young, rebellious singer from the 60s anymore, and he couldn't rely on just the raw power of his voice alone. So, he embraced a new direction, refining his image and sound. Instead of the energetic, rock-infused tracks that had once defined him, he shifted towards a more mature, polished style, focusing on heartfelt ballads, love songs, and a deep, soulful approach to music. During this time, Tom Jones leaned into country and adult contemporary music, recognizing that his deep, rich voice was perfectly suited for storytelling through song. This shift wasn't just about keeping his career alive. It was about proving that he was more than just a pop sensation. He wanted to show the world that his voice was timeless, no matter the genre. Then, in 1977, he found his way back to the top with Say You'll Stay Until Tomorrow, a country ballad that became an unexpected hit. The song climbed the U.S. country charts, reaching #1, and reminded the world that Tom Jones wasn't finished yet. His voice, powerful, emotive, and unmistakable, brought a new level of depth to country music, winning over an audience that had never considered him one of their own before. With this success, Tom proved his adaptability. He wasn't confined to one style, one genre, or one era. He was an artist who could move with the times. His ability to seamlessly transition from pop to country showed that his voice had a place wherever great music was being made. At the same time, he dipped his toes into acting, seeking to expand his reach beyond music. He landed roles in television movies, including Pleasure Cove, hoping to add another dimension to his career. But while he had the charm and charisma of a leading man, his acting ventures never quite took off in the way his music had. The screen could never fully capture the magic of Tom Jones in his element, performing live, commanding a stage, and holding an audience in the palm of his hand. Though the late 70s weren't his most commercially successful years, they were crucial in redefining his legacy. He had proven that he wasn't just a relic of the 60s. He was an artist capable of growth, reinvention, and finding new ways to connect with his audience. His career had taken a different path, but his passion for music never wavered. Little did he know, even greater challenges and even bigger comebacks were still ahead. Long before Tom Jones became a global sensation, there was one person who had always been by his side, Linda. They met as children, just 12 years old, walking the same streets of Treforest, Wales. By the time they were 16, they were married. It was a love story that seemed destined to last a lifetime. As Tom's career skyrocketed, Linda chose a different path. While he toured the world, performed for adoring fans, and lived in the spotlight, she stayed out of it entirely. She preferred the quiet life, away from flashing cameras and screaming audiences. She watched from afar as her husband became one of the most famous men in the world, knowing that the price of his success meant long separations and an ever-growing distance between them. But as Tom Jones's fame grew, so did the temptations that came with it. In the whirlwind of show business, surrounded by endless attention and adoration, he indulged in a lifestyle few could imagine. He openly admitted to sleeping with hundreds of women a year, often meeting them after concerts, in dressing rooms, and hotel suites across the world. It was no secret. His charisma, his voice, and his undeniable presence made him irresistible to fans. Among his more well-known affairs was a 2-year relationship with Mary Wilson of the Supremes. Their connection was more than just a fleeting romance, but it ended abruptly when Linda found out. Furious and heartbroken, she made it clear that she wouldn't tolerate it. But she stayed, choosing to keep her marriage intact despite the betrayals. Then came the scandal that rocked his personal life more than any other. In the early 1970s, Tom had a highly publicized affair with Marjorie Wallace, a former Miss World. Their relationship made headlines across the globe, and the backlash was swift. Wallace, whose title as Miss World demanded a pristine reputation, was stripped of her crown after the affair became public knowledge. The scandal was messy, dramatic, and put a massive strain on Tom's marriage. But the biggest controversy was yet to come. In 1987, a secret affair with American model Catherine Berkery resulted in a child, something Tom had never faced before. When Catherine gave birth to a son, Jonathan, it was revealed through a paternity test that Tom was indeed the father. But instead of embracing his son, he refused to acknowledge him. He dismissed the situation, calling it a mistake and claiming he had been tricked. The rejection left Jonathan to grow up without any relationship with his father, and to this day, they have never truly connected. Despite the affairs, the scandals, and the heartbreak, Linda remained by his side. She never spoke publicly about the infidelities, never gave interviews, and never sought revenge. She had loved Tom since they were kids, and while their marriage was far from perfect, it was deeply rooted in history, loyalty, and something unspoken between them. For Tom, Linda was his anchor, the only person who truly knew him before the fame, before the world claimed him as their own. And despite the chaos that surrounded their marriage, she remained the one constant in his life. But no marriage can exist without scars. The weight of betrayal and years of emotional distance took their toll. Still, through it all, they never separated, never divorced, and never turned their backs on the life they had built together. The world saw Tom Jones as a legend, a superstar, a heartthrob. But behind closed doors, he was a man who had made mistakes. Mistakes that would follow him for the rest of his life. And in the years to come, he would be forced to face something that no scandal, no controversy, and no career setback could ever prepare him for. By the mid-1980s, Tom Jones had reached a crossroads. The world of music had changed yet again, and his presence in the charts had begun to fade. The rock stars of the 70s had given way to the pop icons of the 80s, and Tom was at risk of becoming a voice of the past. But then, in 1986, he suffered a devastating personal loss. His longtime manager and close friend, Gordon Mills, passed away. Mills had been the mastermind behind Tom's success, the one who shaped his image and guided his career from the very beginning. Without him, everything felt uncertain. In the wake of Mills's death, Tom's career was left in limbo. But instead of fading into obscurity, a new figure stepped in to help him find his way: his son, Mark. With fresh ideas and a deep understanding of the evolving music landscape, Mark took over as his father's manager, determined to bring him back into the spotlight. And the comeback began almost immediately. In 1987, Tom recorded A Boy From Nowhere, a powerful ballad that reminded the UK audience of his incredible voice. The song reached #2 on the charts, reigniting interest in his music. But it wasn't until the following year that he truly reintroduced himself to a new generation. In 1988, Tom collaborated with Art of Noise on a reimagined version of Kiss, originally by Prince. The fusion of his deep, commanding vocals with Art of Noise's modern, electronic sound created a fresh and unexpected hit. The song climbed the charts, proving that Tom wasn't just a relic of the past. He was still relevant, still exciting, and still capable of dominating the music scene. Younger audiences, many of whom had never followed his early career, suddenly saw him in a new light. The music video became a staple on MTV, further cementing his place in pop culture. But Tom wasn't done yet. The 90s would bring one of the most successful reinventions of his career. In 1999, he released Reload, an album that introduced him to an entirely new audience. Instead of simply revisiting his past, Tom embraced the present, collaborating with some of the biggest artists of the time. The album featured duets with stars like Robbie Williams, The Cardigans, and Portishead, blending Tom's legendary voice with modern production styles. It was a massive success, selling over 4 million copies and earning him his first #1 album in the UK in decades. And then there was Sex Bomb. The infectious, high-energy track became an international sensation, dominating dance floors and radio stations worldwide. At a time when many artists from his era had faded into the background, Tom Jones had managed to stay at the top. His newfound success wasn't just about record sales. He was earning the respect of musicians across genres. He performed at Glastonbury, one of the biggest music festivals in the world, where he captivated an audience filled with young rock and indie fans. He shared the stage with legendary artists like Van Morrison and even received his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. His influence was undeniable, and his ability to evolve with the times was nothing short of remarkable. Then, in 2012, Tom made yet another move that would further cement his legacy. Not in music, but on television. He became a coach on The Voice UK, a talent show that allowed him to share his decades of experience with a new generation of aspiring singers. His warmth, humor, and unmistakable charm made him an audience favorite, and he quickly became one of the most beloved mentors on the show. Week after week, contestants looked to him for guidance, eager to learn from a man who had not only seen it all, but had survived it all. And for Tom, it was a chance to give back, to help young artists find their way in an industry that had tested him so many times before. Even as the years passed, his presence remained as strong as ever. His music continued to reach new audiences, his performances still packed venues, and his unmistakable voice, full of power, soul, and emotion, proved that true legends never fade. But behind all the triumphs and reinventions, Tom was about to face the greatest personal loss of his life, one that no amount of fame, fortune, or music could ever prepare him for. For all the success, the fame, and the adoration of millions, there was only one person who truly knew Tom Jones before he became a star: his wife, Linda. She had been with him since the beginning, from their small-town childhood in Wales to the heights of international stardom. Through every triumph and every mistake, she remained his anchor, the one constant in a life filled with chaos. But in 2016, Tom's world was shattered. Linda was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. The news was devastating, and before Tom could truly process what was happening, she was gone. Her passing was sudden, leaving him heartbroken, lost, and unsure of how to move forward. For the first time in his life, the stage felt empty, the music hollow. Without Linda, he questioned whether he could continue at all. For months, Tom wrestled with the idea of stepping away from music entirely. The grief was overwhelming, and performing without her presence in his life felt impossible. But then, he remembered something Linda had told him in her final days. She wanted him to keep going. She had been there through it all, seen him thrive in the spotlight, and she knew that music was more than just a career for him. It was his lifeline. So, to honor her, Tom decided to return to the one place that still made sense to him: the stage. He moved back to the UK, fulfilling Linda's wish for him to reconnect with his roots. And slowly, he found solace in performing again. Music had saved him before, and now, in his darkest hour, it would do so again. As the years passed, Tom's performances took on a new depth. His voice, always powerful, now carried the weight of experience, pain, and wisdom. And in 2021, he released one of the most personal albums of his career, Surrounded by Time. This was not just another record. It was a reflection on life, aging, and loss. It was raw, introspective, and deeply emotional. One of the standout tracks, I Won't Crumble With You If You Fall, was a tribute to Linda, an acknowledgement of the strength she had shown in her final moments and the strength he had to find within himself to carry on. Every note of the song was filled with emotion, a testament to the love and loss that had shaped his life. Despite everything, Tom never stopped. He continued to tour, standing before packed audiences, delivering performances filled with passion and intensity. At an age when many had long since retired, he remained unstoppable, proving that music wasn't just what he did, it was who he was. And when looking at his career, the numbers speak for themselves. Over 100 million records sold, Grammy and Brit Awards, a knighthood from the Queen, and a legacy that spans more than 6 decades. But beyond the awards and accolades, what truly makes Tom Jones a legend is his resilience, his ability to rise, fall, and rise again. His willingness to evolve, to push forward, and to give everything he has every time he steps on stage. Even now, his voice remains unmistakable, rich, powerful, and full of life. He has inspired generations, broken barriers, and proven that passion never fades. He is more than just a singer. He is a force of nature, a man whose music has stood the test of time. And as long as there's a stage, as long as there's an audience, and as long as there's music to be sung, the legend of Tom Jones will never fade. Tom Jones's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary, a story of talent, reinvention, heartbreak, and resilience. From his humble beginnings in Wales to his rise as a global superstar, from career setbacks to stunning comebacks, and from personal loss to finding strength in music, his legacy is one that will live on for generations. But now, we want to hear from you. What part of Tom Jones's story surprised you the most? Was it his unstoppable drive, his legendary performances, or the personal struggles he endured behind the scenes? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of a true music icon, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out our other videos on the greatest legends in music history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.